Hello everybody, welcome back to Shot Racing Collects, where today we have another video.
Today's video is an awesome, don't throw that at me, we have a huge TCDB trade and a Christmas card that actually just got here from the only, RJ, Ronald Jackson, better known as RJ Collects That. But first, all the way from the chair on the other side of the room, by way of his bedroom, or the couch downstairs in front of the Xbox. Well, that's where you normally are. We have AJ, sorry. We have AJ singing. What's it called?
Licking the envelope.
Where he's singing his number 4 hit, Licking the Envelope.
Where you've got to lick the envelope.
Lick it.
But make sure to lick the envelope to close it.
Lick it.
But don't get a paper cut on your tongue.
When you lick it.
Lick the envelope.
Lick it. Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, that was very interesting. Lots of fun. Okay, so our envelope today is from, oops, I forgot to go in there. RJ, Ronald Jackson, one of the most generous people on YouTube. Let's go over and check out his channel. Boom. RJ has 338 subscribers. It is really a frickin' shame, excuse my language, people, but I can't believe he isn't at 3,000, let alone 300. He is such an awesome guy. He has probably one of the best knowledge for baseball there is on YouTube. He's a Mike Schmidt super collector. He also collects baseball items, and it's so cool because every video he does a Mike Schmidt item and then a random baseball item. And some of the stuff he has is just amazing. He had little books with quotes in it from different players and stuff. It's a lot of fun. The other thing he does is every video, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he does a question. Doesn't matter if you get the question right or not. If you send him an email with an answer, he puts you on the wheel, and then Sunday, he spins the wheel, and he does a card for a prize, or sometimes it's a few cards, but there's always a prize. He spins the wheel, and the first person to get landed on 3 times wins that card, free of charge. That's how awesome and generous RJ is. He's just such an awesome, true friend, and we need to get him up a lot higher than that because he does so much for us in the card community. We need to get him some love too. So please go sub up to RJ. It's worth it. It's a lot of fun listening to his stories and stuff. Okay, so go ahead and drop the puck or drop the camera, and we'll see what's in the Christmas card. Okay. Oh, there's a Christmas card. Inside, I already took the cards out. It says,
A heart-filled Christmas of peace and happiness. Merry Christmas from RJ Collects That.
that's just, he did this out of the goodness of his heart. Like, that's how awesome this guy really is. Very truthful and everything else. Okay, so these are the 4 cards he sent. There it is. Okay, so, of course, guess what teams he sent?
Blue Jays. Mark Whitten.
On the Bleach Premier.
Alex Gonzalez.
Yep. And then from the Expos, which is the other Canadian team.
We got Ugeth Urbina.
And Jeff Facero.
Yeah.
So with that, thank you, RJ. You have an amazing channel. You do such an awesome job on it. Thank you for everything you do for the card community. Thank you for everything you've done for us. And thank you for being my friend. So now we have a trade. I'm going to zoom out for a second because of the wonderful things he does. That's why. So we have a trade. It's actually a trade and a purchase from melamathman from the TCDB. We have one box. I think that's about a 500, 800 count box. We have another 500, 800 count box, and probably about a 1,000 count box. So strap in. It's going to be a long one. AJ's going to go through these kind of fast as he can. Just let us go, help us go through them a little quicker. Now I'm not sure which one was supposed to be first or anything, but I'm going to say this is pretty close. So there is. Oh, the ones in behind might be backwards. Am I right?
Yep.
Oops. Oh, we're just going to make files, go through the trade, enjoy some blasts from the past. Okay, so let's do a zoom. Okay, is it in focus?
Yes.
Is that better? Okay. All right.
Michel Placé, Phil Meyer, Bill Hajat, Greg Yoli, Bob Nystrom, Ron Grayshaner, the Canucks.
You're upside down, eh? Sorry, I didn't go through these to make sure they're the right way or nothing, so I'll take the blame for it.
Pitt Martin, Brad Gasov, Tad Worrell, Pete Schwarrick, John Vanderwall.
There's a lot of cards in here from all kinds of different sets, different sports and everything, but he's helped me pretty much close out a bunch of sets with this.
Jeff Facero, Ivan Calderon, Mark Portugal, Juan Guerrero.
Okay, the rest of these I'm putting in the right, so you won't have to flip them.
Reggie Sanders,
Might have to turn sideways, but that's what it is.
Dion James,
Dion.
Steve Howe, Greg Gagne, Willie Banks, Franklin Stubbs, Tom Gordon, Mike Henneman, Bill Gillickson, Junior Ortiz, Steve Sachs, Scott Radinsky, Mike Huff, Lee Stevens, Joey Cora, Alonzo Powell, Ray Langford, we got Ray Langford, Andujar Cedeno, Gene Larkin, Johnny Wayner, Kevin Apier, Daryl Hamilton, Scott Champerino, Craig Grayback, Steve Betterosen, Roberto Kelly, Tommy Green,
Okay, just go ahead and grab the next pile.
Bobby Valentine, Royce Clayton, Ken Patterson, Tim Leary, Jack Howell, Kyle Daniels, Kyle Abbott, John Burkett, Joe Thorberg, Paul Assenmacher, Billy Ripken, Gerald Clark, Willie Banks, Bernard Gilkey, Dave Magadan, Billy Spires, Ken Caminetti, Kevin Reimer, Lance Johnson, Scott Hadberg, Bob Melvin, Art Howe, Kevin Morton, Jose Quino, Kirk Gibson, B.J. Surhoff, Kurt Dreisendorfer, Craig Biggio,
Good job, buddy.
Kurt Wilkinson.
And how'd that happen? How'd that happen?
Knocked it over. Scott Wilkerson, Kevin Mayes, Tom Bolton, Rob Murphy, Mark Hollers, Lee Stevens, Scott Radinsky, Mike Gardiner, Mark Lemenke, Tim Belcher, Andy Menez, Joe Klink, John Marzano, Harold Reynolds, Jim Fragosi, Ken Hill, Greg Gagne, Bill Landrum, Alan Watson, Bobby Rose, Terry Leach, Wayne Housey, Chris Bosio, Felix Verman, Kevin McReynolds, Bob Tewksbury, Steve Bushell,
Perfect.
Danny Jackson, Pedro Munoz, Mike Hargrove, Luis Mercedes, Dave Smith, Jacob Brumfield, Jerome Bernards, Alan Cockrell, DJ Dozer, Mariano Duncan, Russ Swan, Lenny Webster, Mel Rojas, Kelly Downs, Tony Pena, Brian Harvey, Jimmy Gonzalez, Wade Taylor, Donald Harris, Herm Winningham, Jose Tolentino, Jose Urabe, Willie Wilson, Kim Batista, Mike Heath,
Shout out to Mike Heath,
Kenny Rogers, Doug DeSenzo, Todd Benzinger, Joe Graff, Kearney Lansford, Jeff Brantley, Bob Walk, Tino Martinez, Randy Bush, Robbie Thompson, Mike Rostire, Frank Bullock, Craig Pequot, Tom Reddington and Paul Russo, Greg Harris, Lonnie Smith.
Okay, next pile. One more pile after this, and the first box is done. And only 2 more boxes to go. Oops.
Stan Belinda, Doug Jones, Tom Kelly, Frank Canana, Tom Gordon, Tony LaRosa, Mike Jackson, Bob Zupich, Ronnie Williams, Ed Nunez, Greg Riddick, Rick Wilkins, Zane Smith, Jack Dougherty, Dave Henderson, Franklin Stubbs, Kurt Schilling, Jeff Huson, Top Stadium Clubs, John Stockton,
Yep. So you're 92.
Dennis Rodman,
The Worm.
David Wingate. Wes Unsled.
You're up just a little high. There you go.
Larry Stewart. Bradford Smith. Purvis Ellison. Liddell Ackles. Michael Adams. Jerry Sloan. Carl Malone. Mark Eaton. Mike Brown. David Benoit. Ricky Pierce. Gary Payton. George Carl. Michael Cage.
You're a little cockeyed. So that one there is pretty much straight. It's the ones behind there. It's
Benoit Benjamin.
Benoit Benjamin.
Jerry Tarkinen. David Robinson.
Admiral.
Dale Ellis. Antoine Carr. Spud Webb. Dwayne Coswell. Buck Williams. Rod Strickland. Cliff Robinson. Robert Pack. Jerome Kiersey. Kevin Duckworth. Clyde Drexler. Mark West. Kevin Johnson. Charles Barkley. Jeff Ruland. Tim Perry. Doug Moe. Andrew Lang. Jeff Hornacek. Manu Bowl. Don McLean. Charles Jones. Tom Gugliotta. Stephen Howard. Sidney Green. Dale Ellis. Jim Less. Dave Johnson. Oliver Miller. Clarence Weatherspoon. Andrew Lang. Greg Grant. Jeff Turner. Little Ryle Green.
Okay, last one for the first box.
Charles Smith. Brad Sellers. Chuck Pearson. Christian Leitner. Lee Mayberry. Brad LaHouse. Anthony Peller. Randy Woods. Elmore Spencer. Greg Durilling. Robert Horry. Scott Brooks. Latrell Sprewell. Byron Houston. Jeff Grainer. Danny Young. Mark Randall. Gerald Glass. Sean Brooks. Tracy Moore. Brian Howard. Jerome Lane. Will Perude. Rodney McCray. Kevin Lynch. Tony Bennett. Travis Mays. Adam Keefe. Dikembe Mutombo. Terrell Brandon. Kenny Walker. Ron Harper. Carl Malone.
Mailman.
and Sean Kemp. Checklist,
Let's go.
checklist,
Let's go.
and checklist.
Let's go. Schoolyard Stars.
Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, Kevin Johnson, Brad Dougherty, Larry Johnson.
And that's the Fleer Vision. I love those cards.
We got Kevin Johnson.
Oh.
Tim Hardaway. David Robinson.
The NBA awards.
Larry Johnson.
Yeah.
Dana Barros. Mark Price.
League leaders.
Buck Williams.
Then we get in some 90 Dunross.
Bob Twellsbury.
Tewksbury.
Gary Ave. Ozzie Smith. Bo Alfred. Tom Filler. Bill Landrum. Mike Blower.
Blowers.
Rick Shue. Terry Mulholland. Mike Stanton. Jerry Kutzer. Gary Sheffield. Jeff King. Keith Hernandez. Bill
Spears.
Greg Olson. Ted Higuera. Ron Oyster. Craig Biggio. Brett Butler. Mike LaValliere. Dwight Gooden.
Doc.
Damon Berryhill. Huey Brooks. Gino Petrelli. Pat Combs.
Rookie card.
Scott Coolsbro.
Rookie card. And Tops Stadium Club propaganda. Next box. One box down. 2 boxes to go.
Matt Noakes. Jeff Gray. Mike
LaValliere.
Rich DeLucia.
You can
Steve
just say
Howe.
the first name or last name if you want.
Tim. Roberto. Harold.
I'm cool with that.
Willie. Dave. Otis.
Dave's not here, man.
Juan. Stadium Club. Rosario. Randy. Doug. Bill. Mickey. Warren. Craig. Jeff. Carl. Doug. Said. Steve.
Fry.
Ramon. Keith Miller. Sean. Jim. Jack. Tony.
Bosses.
Gary. Dave. Scott. Wilson. Daryl. Joe. Jerry. Denny. Poole. Andy. Don. Jeff. Scott. Bob. Dan Gladden. Vaughn Hayes. Kevin. Trevor. Jose.
Can you see?
Bill. Jack. Walt. Jim. Terry. Mark. Greg. Mike. Chico. Mel.
Rojas.
Tim. Jeff.
Yes.
Pat. Barry. Archie.
I want to bury Archie.
Royce. Brian, Mike, Todd, Mark, Daryl, Scott, Lance, Brent, John, Mike, Checklist,
Let's go.
Alice, Jeff, Scott, Lenny, Alex, Scott, Jose, Steve, Greg.
Just turn that light on. You keep going in front of the lights, and there's a bit of a shadow. There you go. Joe Girardi.
Bobby,
Ojeda.
Bobby, Casey, Richard,
Gerald. Where'd
Gerald.
you get Richard?
Alvin,
Alvin.
Terry, Pat, Yvonne, Andy, Tim, John, Andy, Will. Checklist.
No, that's the propaganda. Okay, second pile out of the second box. Only 3 piles in this box, so.
Ryan, Mike, Howard, Charlie, Mike, Lance, Jim, Scott, Willie, Steve, Paul, Dan, Roger, Mike, Chris, Darren, Craig, Sean, Steve, Billy, Ruben, Dave, Steve, Arthur, Mike, Scott, Hensley, Rob, Steve, Chris, Cecil, Brooke, Candy, Scott, Dave, Martinez, Rich, Tom, Geronimo, Jim, Melado, Albert, Gary, Kurt, Greg, Tommy, Omar.
There's only 5 piles left in this whole trade.
Mike, Olivaro, Jamie, Chris, Kurt, Rex, Joe, Tim, Steve, Reggie, Chris, Jay, Steve, Bill, Bernard, Bip, Tim, Scott, Mike, Dante, Shane, Bernie, Mike, Rob, Byron,
Bryn.
Mike, Kelly, Les, Mike, Ron, Mark, Kevin, Mario, Checklist, Larry Johnson, Patrick Ewing, Carl Malone, Dennis, Kevin, Greg, Charles Barkley, Sionis,
He
Evers,
said his name right.
Chris, LaRon, Lloyd.
That's actually, he changed his name to Xavier.
Xavier Sionis.
No, Xavier McDaniel.
Rex,
Rax.
Nate, Literal, Danny, Harvey, Mike, Orlando, Sam, Armin, Corey, Isaiah, Tim, Eric, Sean, Benoit, Sam, Scott, Mark, Dominique, Derek, Herb, Hershey, Terry, Detlef, Dikembe, John, Dan, Kevin, Warren, Avery, Calbert, John, Chris, Harold, Byron, Irvin, Andrew, Bill, Tony, Pete.
You gonna do it?
Yeah.
We got Bobby Hurley, Gary Grant, Rick Smits, Chris Webber, Kendall Gill, Tom Chandler,
Judd, Paul, Doug, Kenny, Sean, Checklist,
let's go,
Sean, Keith, Tyrone, Terry, Danny, Mark, Lionel, BJ, Spud Webb, Marlon,
Maxie,
Clarence, Sam, John, Calbert,
Trell Spreewell,
Brad, Bill, Robert, Billy, Dale, Tim, Stacy,
Stacy's mom,
Ronnie, Scott, James, Scotty, Anthony, Reggie, Brent, Brian, Tim, Jeff Hornacek,
Yep.
Kevin, David, Olden, Danny, Jerome, Bill, Sydney, Kevin, Pete, Vinny, Todd, Derek, Johnny, Terry, Matt, Derek, Doug, Dave, Donald, Shaq, Charles,
okay. Up. Last box. We're 34 minutes in.
Checklist,
Let's go.
Sean, Dana, Paul, Russ, Phil, Keith, Tim, Ricky, Brad, Mike, Milt, Derek, Billy, Kevin, Andy, Kent, John, Scott, Eric, Kevin, Andy, Wes, Terry, Wes, John, Ron, Craig, Brent, Adam, Otis, Jeff, Scott, Bip, Daryl, Joe.
So the pile's a little smaller? Are they okay the way they are?
They're okay.
All right.
Carl, Chris, Kurt, Mike, Steve, Brian, Juan, Rick, Jeff, Randy, Mike, Chili, Jeff, John, Keith, Matt, Mitch, Ron, Jeff, Gene Nelson, Mark, Brent, Tim, Derek, Billy, Johnny, Jeff, Chris, Tom, Sean, Kevin, Jose, Brian, Greg, Dave, Carlos, Mike, Tom, RJ, Clay,
Hey, RJ collects
Dave,
sets. Just realized.
Jack, Tony,
Tony La Russa.
Harold,
Hall of Famer.
Sandy, Ozzy, Vince, Joe, Mickey, Al, Ray, Kevin, Tim, Sergio, John, Tracy, Les, Bob, Craig, Junior, Steve, Lee, Eric, Jack, Jeff, Bobby, Stadium Club.
Okay.
Gene, Norm, Brian, Bobby, Paul, Marcel, Ken, Phil, Tony, Michelle, Gordy, Bobby, Guy, Frank, Mark, Bobby, Gilbert, Dennis, Borgia, Dennis, Billy, John, Ozzy, Jeff, Andres, Steve, Jack, Turner, Steve, Tony, Chuck, Mike, Wallace, Ruben, Kurt, Jeff, Scott, Rich, Bill, Alan, Ron, Jeff, Hilly, Greg, Paul, Dave, Eric, Mark, Troy, Mike, Sean, Lance, Tony, Doug, Hal, Bob, Tim, Kent, Reggie, Dave, Royce, John, Craig, Pete, John, Rich, Dion, Rob, Mike, Jose, Delino, Carlos, Mike, Ramon, Stan, Felix, Mel, Manuel, Mike, Jack, Norm, Gerald, Scott, Tom, Craig, Jeff, Joel, Rich, Kevin, Scott, Jose, Jeff, Brad, and Gary.
Okay, second last pile. You're going through them pretty good now.
Brian, Wally, Tracy, Bill,
You're
Greg,
a little high though. There you go.
Larry, Bill, Mel, Checklist,
Let's go.
Tom, Mike, Jack, Eric, Tom, Todd, Mike, Mark, Ruben, Bobby, Storm, Dick, Carl, Moises, Dave, Gino, Joe, Brian, Alice, Al, Shane, Turner, Randy, Pedro, Dion, Neil, Danny, Hector, Mark, Mike, Jeff Shaw, Tim.
Let's go.
We already had one earlier though.
I know.
That's insane. Daryl, Juan, Rodney, Brooke, Jody, Monty, Scott, Eddie, Keith, Carl, Dennis, John, Bob Walk, Sandy Jr., Dave, Charlie Jr., Tony, Kenny, Donald, Danny, Lance, Vaughn, Bill, Jose, Chuck, Jeff, Wade, Tom,
Sorry, everybody. He likes to drag his hands. And he hits the edge of the thing that it's sitting on and knocks it off.
Tom. Checklist.
Let's go.
Rick. Warren. Ron. Chris. Pat. Kevin. Checklist. Carl. Antoine. Johnny. Ron. Vernell. Willie. JR. Michael.
Some guy named Jordan, is that what it was?
Yeah.
That's just one card I screwed up on there.
Kevin.
Too high. There you go.
Bill. Kurt. Dominique. Spud.
Oh, I did screw up then. Okay. There you go.
Scott. Dennis. Stanley. Nick. Gerald. John. Pat. Charles.
Oakley.
Xavier. Anthony. Mark. Patrick. And Darren.
Okay, I split this into two smaller piles. So I'll have to play with the autofocus.
Chris. Terry. Derek. Mookie. Doug. Felton. Jimmy.
And yes, I will sleeve the Mookie.
Pooh. Sam. Luke. Fred. Eric. Moses. Blue. Mike. Ronnie. Glenn. Kevin. Grant. Terry. Byron. Randy. Sam. AC. Vlad.
Lottie.
Charles. Doc. Ron. James. Larry. LaSalle. Rick. Detlef. Chuck. Reggie.
Nice.
Rudy. Otis. Kenny. Hakeem.
The Dream.
Vernon. Brock.
Buck.
Avery. Sleepy. Don. Tyrone. Tim.
Tim Hardaway.
Mario. Victor. Isaiah.
Okay, and last pile.
John. Olden. Joe. Mark. Reggie. Dikembe. Mark. Chris. Dan. Greg. Doug. Donald. Derek. Terry. Lenny. Larry. Craig. Brad. Terrell. John. Scotty. Stacy. Phil. Bill. Johnny. Larry. Alan. Robert, Reggie, Kevin, Rice, Chris, Kevin, Dominique, Bob, Rumiel, Blair, Dwayne, Alonzo, Eddie, Jeff, Elmore, Eugene, Mike, Bruce, Bill, Yaramir, Sergey, Rich, and propaganda card.
There you go. That was the entire trade purchase. This is everything that he had that we needed on the TCDB. So rather than do a whole bunch of little trades, he just figured out what he wanted, and I paid the difference between the two, which was only like 20 bucks, I think it was. Something like that, nothing much. But with that, we want to say thank you to melamathman from the TCDB. I don't. He actually dropped it off at my house, so I don't have an envelope or anything to show you, but that's melamathman. And huge thank you for the Christmas card to. There it is. RJ Collects Sets. Awesome guy, awesome channel. Please go check him out, give him a sub, listen to some of his stories. You will be back every day. And with that, we want to thank everybody for watching. Please have a great day.
And
have
a fucking good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.